and we're live right now on the Pure West Radio Facebook page as well. Good to have your company. Let's get into some of the local rugby, and don't forget pembrokeshiresport.co.uk has loads of reports, loads of pictures and match action from the weekend's rugby. Gordon, Narberth are in fine form, aren't they? They beat Crymych 30-21 to continue their brilliant run of victories.
Yeah, fair play to the Otters. They really go in something this season as well. You know, with the change of coaching staff. Did I recognise Stag Jones getting involved at some point? Is he involved?
Stag is lingering.
Stag?
Yeah.
Any team that's coached by Stag Jones will be thoroughly know what
that
the job is.
That Whitlam tracksuit's firmly back in the laundry.
And the Whitlam tracksuit's strong.
Yeah. No, they arrested several players actually now as well. They took a gamble for a Pembrokeshire derby. Tom Powell was one, the captain, flanker on the bench. They've obviously got a big quarter-final actually, championship quarter-final, cup quarter-final coming up this week, and then I think they've got Brecon the week after, which essentially top of the table clash. So got a strong squad because they took a risk there, and
they did, and it's coming off.
Yeah, I think it's 13 wins on the trot now, isn't it? A word for Crymych as well. Actually, we've covered quite a bit on the show over the last year, and they pushed Narberth certainly, didn't they?
They've done well to come into the championship and play as well as what they have in their first season.
100%.
They deserve a lot of credit for what they're doing, and long may that continue because they're a difficult side to beat, Crymych.
Not remotely out of place.
They're not remotely out of place. No, they're a dogged team.
Yeah, no, that's great, and we've had plenty of coverage from Crymych over the last few months on Pure West Sport. We've got a Whitland legend with us, of course, in Fraser Watson, and your side were beaten by Gowerton, weren't they, at home at the weekend, Fraser?
Yeah, I'd be amazed if they stayed up now. Actually, Ben, it's very much a rebuild there. I noticed that when I went to watch them in the Pembrokeshire Cup, a lot of young players coming through. I always a believer that you fight tooth and nail against getting relegated, but if it does happen to them, they've got a young coaching staff, a young squad. I don't think it'll be panic stations.
Yeah, okay. What about Tenby as well? They had a 2-point win. It was some game that was it. 39-37 they won to stay in contention. They beat Lampeter in contention for the title, but that was some game, Gord.
Correct, and the boot of Harry
that's one of my old teams, Tenby, down in Haywood Lane. Fair play to them. They're doing a good job down there as well. They've got some good players there. They always produce good players down in that area, and they play decent rugby. But it's important to get over the line in your home ground, and they did it. It was close, but they did it on Saturday.
And they've got the boot to Harry Roster now, haven't they?
He's playing very well.
20-odd points with a boot in those conditions.
Yeah,
is a huge factor in a division like that.
It is. Yeah.
We'll carry on following them. Milford Haven had a win by a point. They beat Amman United 13
down to 12 men.
Down to 12 men at one point, which is quite a lot for Milford to have on actually by after 60 minutes over the years. But no, I would normally say that in Division 2 West, you can't expect to go away around and have 12 men and win, but they managed to come through. Look, Milford, they won that title in 2018-19. This is actually the first season in Division 2 where they've been playing with jeopardy. There's been no relegation for whatever COVID regulations and half seasons we've had. And fair play, they haven't settled for going back down. They're fighting. They're up against this. It's the same old names we've been doing that for years. They're like Lee Riley still going on, ageless, a few of them. But they're fighting, and they don't look like they're going down either. So credit them for that.
Just out of interest, a couple of other scores to mention as well. But you mentioned down to 12 men. Have you ever played in the game where your team's been reduced to that number? Gord, Fraser, Tom? 12 men.
I did once when we were playing rugby league, but that was 13 aside.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't play in it, but I know St David's once went to a place in the Gower and did play with 12 members. They had 12 available.
Yeah.
It was nothing to do with the adult discipline.
I can't believe many teams have gone fewer than 12. Can you? Due to discipline. Tom?
No, I don't think so. Similar to Fraser, I remember playing Swansea Uplands, and there was a few exchanging of players, and there still wasn't enough.
Well, if anyone can beat that, do let us.
I'm sure it will be beaten. Don't worry about that.
What's the most that teams have had sent off to get down to the least number of players on the pitch? Let us know. Haverfordwest are winners, weren't they? They won a Pembrokeshire derby as well against Pembroke Dock Harlequins 27-5.
Yes, a fascinating title racing division.
It is.
It's shaping up. Cardigan, Haverfordwest, Aberavon, and Larne all in the mix.
Yeah.
Larne I fancy going to struggle. They've got another cup game this week. There are so many games in hand. They're going to come thick and fast towards the end of the year, so whether they'll catch them up. But Haverfordwest are well placed.
They're playing Cardigan this coming Saturday, Frey. So we'll see how that pans out. And they've got to play Larne twice at the end of the season, consecutive games. So it's unravelling nicely there.
I watched Aberystwyth 2 weeks ago. Impressed with them. Always played a good brand of rugby.
They do. They do. Yeah. 15-man game.
Yeah, okay. Good to talk about some of the local rugby, and pembrokeshiresport.co.uk, as I say, is a good place to go if you want to have a look at some of the match reports from those games and some of the photos as well. Let's speak, though, about the Lions, because I think a pretty well-kept secret in the end, but we all thought Andy Farrell would be in contention. He's taken the job. He'll succeed Warren Gatland with the Lions. Fraser, what was your reaction to that appointment? Was he the obvious choice?
Perfectly understandable, obvious appointment. I think he's worked on Lions tours before, and he was pivotal, I think, certainly in the win in Australia in 2013. I believe he worked in the last two after that. Certainly he went to New Zealand in 2017. He's taken Ireland forward. He's perceived to be doing a very good job at the helm there. He's very experienced now. I thought he was the obvious candidate.
Yeah. Gordon, a word for Gatland as well. He's done an excellent job with the Lions, obviously back with Wales now. Was it the right time for him to go? And are you happy with Farrell as his replacement?
Yeah, it was definitely the right time for Gatland to go. He'd done the three countries that they play, South Africa, Australia and New Zealand, done very well. So there was no other ground for him to, there was nothing, to get his teeth into as a Lion. So to pass the baton on to Farrell, I think, yes, I agree with everybody in the studio. Yeah, it was definitely the right choice. Be interesting to see how many Welsh players get picked.
Actually, chaps, I was going to ask you that. From a Welsh perspective,
you're eligible for that.
Coaching staff, players, any names you can give?
Bit early to be talking about the Lions because so much. Let's get the Six Nations out the way, and we got another year again. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. No one nailed, though. You would say
you can't nail them at this point, then, because things can change very quickly in any sport. So it's 2025 that the tour is taking place.
Yeah, but it starts now, though, doesn't it? With the Six Nations.
Of course, it is.
Yeah.
I fancy Jack Morgan to come through, and I think the wires are Lewis Rees-Zammit, if fit and firing, I think will go again. Gordon's right. A lot will be clear after the Six Nations, man.
Yeah, I think we'll get into the Six Nations next week. I actually need to tell you three. I'm watching the England-Wales game. In Cardiff.
In Cardiff.
Yeah. The game's at Twickenham, but I'm watching it in Cardiff.
Right. I see. I was just going to say, I thought it was in Twickenham.
Yeah. I'm watching it with a few lads who are all from Caerphilly. Yeah, and they've dared a few of us to wear our England tops on the day, which I think will be okay. We'll get warm welcome.
You'll be fine, man.
Of course we will. So so we'll see. But yeah, good support for Andy Farrell and plenty to come on the Six Nations as we get into that, of course, here on Pure West Sport. I'm looking forward to that. Whilst we've not been on the air over the last couple of weeks with the live show on the Facebook page, of course, we had the really sad news, didn't we, about JPR Williams passing away. Gordon, do you want to kick off and pay tribute, because he is an absolute legend of the game, isn't he? There's no other way to describe him.
Yeah, it's really sad when you see somebody of his ilk passing away. He did it all, didn't he? Let's be honest. Lions in the 70 in New Zealand, they won out there. 74, he went in 74. He's one of the unique players who went out there as well. They were unbeaten in South Africa. He played 55 times for his country, played for the Barbars with that fantastic try of Gareth Edwards, where somebody, as you often see, had him round the neck. But he was a hard man, and that tackle on Gordon going in the wing for France, thought he was going in to score a try until JPR came and knocked him into the stand. But yeah, it was a shock. To be honest, it was so quick. It wasn't expected, and he was probably the greatest fullback of any era. Should I say that? There will be arguments that people will say, there are always somebody better, but he was probably the first running fullback that I ever saw. And what was unique, he never lost against England. That was
11 matches.
11 matches.
Wow.
Always finished on the winning side.
Yeah.
He was a competitor as well, a real competitor. And and what sums it up for me watching JPR was when he got stamped on the Brewery Field against New Zealand, and he had a big scar here. His father stitched him up. Apparently, he's lost 2 pints of blood, but he still went back on. Could you imagine that? Footballers today doing that, you know, he was just another breed.
Yeah, and Fraser, he's from that era of absolute greats, and it is always sad when we lose them. But I use the word legend, and it gets chucked around in sport probably a bit too easy. He deserves it, as Gordon's just said. Some player, wasn't he?
100%. You're defined by your era, aren't you? And he was phenomenal for what his era was. I actually chuckle away a little bit because you talk about, you know, I've heard a lot of comments. I understand what they made saying that, you know, he would have flourished in any era. I don't think he would have been on the field very long in this era. You talk about Gordon's tackle on the Frenchman. You talk HIA.
It was totally illegal today.
Red card, 6 weeks in HIA, I think.
And what was if there was a punch up, you come running up from fullback and get involved with the forwards.
The main antagonist of the 99 call, isn't it? But you talk about the greats of the game. We've just talked about the Lions there, and it's significant in their lengthy history. Only once ever they won back-to-back tours. 1971, as Gordon mentioned, and 1974, and names like him were synonymous with that. And for that reason alone, he'll always remain an all-time great. But yeah, very sad news. Tremendous character and very underrated sportsman. Actually won. It was like a
junior Wimbledon,
the equivalent of junior Wimbledon. He played in a tennis final and actually represented England schools in athletics, believe it or not, when he attended Milfield. And that often got missed as well. He's actually multi-talented.
Yeah, indeed. Okay,
and a top surgeon.
I was going to say, I'm reading his book. You find out more about the fact that he was a surgeon, and you're talking about all these exploits of him on the field. He was a caring, nurturing man, putting people back together.
Yeah, and it's reported that he actually didn't go on the Lions tour in 1977 because he was focusing on his medical career, wasn't it? It's incredible now that era. Absolutely brilliant and great to pay tribute to JPR Williams. And actually moves us on to just a final debate on this section that we wanted to bring up. He played his rugby, or some of his rugby, didn't he, for London Welsh, and under the ridiculous new rules that we have in this era, that would mean he wouldn't be able to play for Wales. This is a debate that's reared its head again in the last week, hasn't it? Players playing overseas, and plenty of comment on this. So are we ever going to get to a point where that rule will get reviewed or scrapped, do we think? And is now the time to do it? Because if Wales want to be competitive, surely you have to let your players go and play at the best possible level.
Look, I think to answer your immediate question, yes, it's very close to being under review because we're seeing a number of players now linked with Move Away who would feature in the Six Nations who might not. Look, there is reasoning behind it. I understand why anyone who wasn't a Welsh supporter or not even living in Wales would look at it in black and white and think it's an absolutely basket case ruling. When Welsh clubs play in Wales, that's the only time that the Welsh coach, in this case Warren Gatland, has full access to them for training camps. It also means that if they're not picked for a Six Nations International, they can't stay with the camp. They have to go back to England or France, wherever it is, and play with those clubs. So it lessens the time he has with him, which in turn, in theory, lessens the quality of the national side. There is reasoning behind it. It's not quite as stupid and as justified as it appears. But it is now getting to the point where you could be having just too many strong players not to pick from. It's a double-edged sword because, as I've explained there is reasoning for it. It does benefit the national side, but now we've got the regions unable to keep their best players and not producing the quality to keep their best players in the URC as well. So for as long as that's happening, they will keep siphoning away. Club is the livelihood of players. It's professionalism. You can argue about patriarchy in your country all you like, and they will begin to go away to England, to France, further. Japan, we're seeing now, and things like that, aren't they? So, yeah, I think it will come under review, Ben, but I don't think it's as clear-cut a situation as maybe many outside Wales believe it is.
Exactly. Gord, is there a world then where we could have a review and the rule stays in place?
Well, possibly. I mean, at the end of the day, rugby players' career is so short. And as Fraser just pointed out, they're professional now. It's not amateur. It was amateur back in JPR's day. It was a different matter entirely. But when it's your livelihood, you've on average a rugby player will last 10 seasons. They have to make hay while the sun shines and, make a decent living. It's been cut a lot, as we all have been made aware in Wales. And if you get offered a contract in any other country that's twice the size of what you're playing in your own country, there's only one winner. You've got to go where, your bread and butter is, and that will be away playing. And we will lose internationals, but there's always players coming through. And Fraser's right, we will lose quality players, but at the same time, it opens the door for somebody else to come through. We'll just have to see how it pans out over the next few seasons. And they will review it. And as you said, Ben, it might not even change.
What would the reaction be there, Fraser, do you think, if after the review they kept it?
There would be a degree of understanding, but I think a lot of people would obviously lament it as well, because people would perceive that now as just letting our talent go away and perhaps ruining international careers. So it's a very divisive debate. I think there may be a solution where they lower the caps involved. I think at the moment, I'm not sure the exact number.
I'm not sure. It's changed a few times.
It has changed.
In my opinion there, Fraser, I think they should scrap that entirely.
Yeah.
Entirely that they should scrap.
But I think there's a lot of things to fix, and it's not just that rule. The problem is you've got to want to keep these people in Wales who are going to impose that rules. And like I've just said, the standard of the URC is so poor, the crowds are poor. We've seen Cardiff play Harlequins in Europe on the weekend. They were hammered for 50-odd points, but they had a full house. They sold out.
Yeah.
And it goes to about this debate we have, if they can install any kind of Anglo-Welsh league, I think that would revitalise Welsh club rugby a bit. Whether you stand legally with that, with the other clubs involved in the URC, I'm not sure. URC, I'm not sure. But the whole thing from top to bottom is a mess at the moment, from the WRU running it to the clubs or the regions, however you want to word them.
The WRU need to sit down with all the nations and sort this out, because years ago they always played English clubs, Scottish clubs, Irish clubs. Yeah. We're just not getting any advantage now from it. People love to see clubs playing against the English sides and vice versa, and the other nations as well. And if that means more revenue coming through, there's got to be a solution there to help one another as a nation. Help us all. It's a family game. All come together and work it out. It can be done. It can be done.
On the subject of attendances and grounds as well, we had this weekend the Ospreys say that they're going to move away from the Swansea.com stadium, or they're actively looking, aren't they, Fraser? Because the venue, it's a 20,000 ground, and they can't fill it.
Sensible move, Ben. Did a much better atmosphere in the Brewery Field. A couple of months ago, the Brewery Field was still standing, I have to be honest. Yeah. But there, because they're an enclosed ground, you saw when they went away to London to experiment, I think they used the Stoop for a game against one of the South African provinces. They had a much bigger crowd because of the novelty factor, and there's probably a little bit of commercial sense there, big South African following in London. The Liberty, the Swansea.com, experiment as it is now, it just hasn't worked out. It's time. Cardiff did it. They went to the Cardiff City Stadium, couldn't fill it, have come back to the Arms Park. In terms of atmosphere, revenue, people through the door, they need to go somewhere which is more accessible to fans, I think, and it stops them messing up our pitch as well, so we can get back to the Swansea.
I was going to ask you that, actually.
Get back to the Swansea way instead of having to flip and dance around all those stud marks and scrum marks.
It hasn't done damage to the pitch, do you think? Yeah.
No. I'd be very facetious.
Players complaining about cheating on his football team ground. That's ironic.
Yeah, it'll always be the Liberty Stadium as well, Fraser.
I'd love to use that excuse, but I can't. We've just been rubbish.
That's right. All right. We're going to come back for the final part in just a few moments. We've got some indoor cricket to talk about. I'm just reading a message that's come in just ahead of part 3. Just teeing us up nicely. Nick Daly saying, have you got an injury, Fraser? Not seen you play in the indoor league.
I'll answer Nick in segment 3.
Okay, we will find out why Fraser's not been playing indoor cricket this season in a few moments, and a bit more just to finish off as well before we hand over to Danny.
He's working here, isn't he?
There's your answer. Or is there more to it, Gordon? We'll find out. Come back for part 3 on Pure West Sport next.
A&A Heating, Gas